Welcome to the Just Because Diaries, where real life meets random chats and plenty of mom moments, all while reclaiming joy in the seemingly mundane. I'm Celeste, a mom, but also a whole-ass person, navigating the balance of motherhood while rediscovering the joy in doing things just for myself. From the chaos of parenting to the little moments that make life fun, nothing is off limits. So, grab a cup of coffee or something stronger, and let's get into it. In today's episode, we are diving into the balance of having a hobby for fun and feeling the pressure of needing to make a career of it, plus answering listener questions from last episode, and a Just Because moment launching our Just Because book club with an inaugural romantasy book that you'll hopefully want to sink your claws into, literally. Hobbies becoming small businesses. This is something I am guilty of doing with literally all of my hobbies ever, except that I never realized that I do that until very, very recently. Over the years, I have never had a hobby that has been solely a hobby. I always try to monetize it in one way or another, including now with my crochet hobby. And in theory, there's nothing wrong with that, except that now I'm realizing that making money from my hobby is kind of taking the joy out of it entirely. As I was putting together my thoughts for this episode, I wanted to know how other people felt about this topic to see if I'm alone in my feelings or if others also feel the same. So I did what anyone would do and I turned to Instagram for a poll, and I was honestly surprised by the results. In my stories, I asked the question, if you have a hobby, crafting or not, is this hobby purely a hobby, or do you earn a profit from it? To which 60% of responses said that their hobby is also a small business. I then took it another step further and asked the question, if you earn a profit from your hobby, does it take the enjoyment out of it, or does it make it more enjoyable? 71% of the responses said that they find that earning a profit from their hobby takes the enjoyment out of it, and 14% said that it makes their hobby more fun, and another 14% said that they didn't feel either way. I found these responses to be really interesting and honestly a little validating because the holiday season is quickly approaching, which for me and many others means that the holiday craft market season is approaching. But the closer it gets, the less I find myself wanting to be a vendor at any markets this year, even though I had been successful at a market in the past. And I haven't quite reached full-on burnout with crochet by any means, but I am feeling the struggle of loving it as much as a small business to the point where I am rethinking my relationship with crochet as a small business entirely because it is sucking the joy out of my hobby. So it was nice to know from that little tiny poll that I did that I'm not alone in that. For me, I am looking to get back to the heart of why I started to crochet in the first place, which was really wanting and needing a hobby. It was something that I needed just for me at a time when I was really, really struggling with my identity as a mom, person, So when I learned how to crochet, I fell in love with it and I completely threw myself into it. I would watch YouTube videos or Instagram reels or read articles, whatever I could do to learn new stitches or techniques. I loved it and it literally became my whole personality. So I found projects for myself and I learned and I created and I loved every second of it until I inevitably turned it into a small business. I think that sometimes there can be a lot of pressure to make money off of hobbies for any number of reasons. But for me personally, I sometimes feel stay-at-home mom guilt for not directly financially contributing to my family. Not that anyone is making me feel guilty for that, but that guilt mixed with feeling guilt for crocheting during Miles and Keely's awake time made me feel like a horrible mom, which I know is so obviously wrong and untrue. But because of that incorrect line of thinking, I decided that if I made money from my crochet, then at least I would be bringing in some income to the family, and then that would justify me crocheting during the day during my kids' awake time, even though it would have been completely fine anyway. But with that twisted logic of mine, last year, I decided that I was going to be a vendor and sell my work at my first ever holiday market. The problem is, I decided this and signed up for the market 1 month before the event was to be held, and I had no product made whatsoever. I don't really know what I was thinking, but I was really excited and really motivated, so I then spent the next month torturing myself and crocheting until my hands hurt every day in, day out, just to have a decent amount of items to sell at this market while also taking care of Miles and Keely. But I didn't feel mom guilt at that time because, again, my twisted view on if I'm doing this for the family and it's going to end up making a profit, hopefully, then it's fine. But I was stressed and I was so tired. But I did it, and I made a bunch of products and I got myself organized, and soon the day of the market came and people walked by and I chatted with people that came through my booth. Some people purchased some things, some people didn't. That's fine. I definitely got that one person though. I feel like every vendor experiences this person. That one person who comes into your booth and starts looking at all your items and then says out loud in front of me, the vendor and creator of all the things, I could just make this myself. Why is that? Why is that always a thing? But I just respond with, yeah, you should. It's a lot of fun. You should definitely make this for yourself. But there's always one, isn't there? You know, if you've ever been a vendor at a market, you know, I'm sure you've had at least one of these experiences. But overall, I really enjoyed my first market experience, and I came away from it with a major crafter's high. I was so proud of myself that I did this thing that was really hard and that I really wanted to do, and I actually did make a bit of a profit from it. So I walked away deciding that I was so successful this year, at least successful period, not so successful, but I did make a profit. And because of that, I would try again this year. And not only would I try it again at that market again this year, but I would add many more markets to my calendar. Well, holiday markets will be starting in the next few weeks, and I have signed up for exactly 0 of them, and I have made exactly 0 products. And no, this isn't because I am procrastinating and setting myself up for the same exact situation as last year. It's just that when it came time to look into the markets, I found myself not wanting to, and I just kept putting it off and putting it off. And then a friend sent me an application for a market that she had been a vendor at previously and said was pretty good. So I thought, great, I'll do that one. And I opened up the application and I filled it out, but I could not click the submit button. I even walked away from it for a bit and came back, and I felt the same. I could not click the button. I didn't want to do this market. And I realized I didn't want to do any markets at all. And it didn't even have anything to do with mom guilt this time. Actually, it was completely the opposite. So what's up with this big switch? How did I go from gung-ho, I'm going to conquer all the markets this year, to not wanting to do even one? Well, right before my friend had sent me the application, I had just finished crocheting a Captain America shield for my son Miles for his Halloween costume. And I was super proud of it because I did it completely freehand, which honestly is probably my favorite part about crocheting. I love to be able to just envision something in my head and then try to make it without having a pattern to follow or anything. I love the idea that you can just create something from nothing. And it doesn't always work out, but in this case it did. So being able to make Miles the shield and then seeing how much he loved it gave me a different kind of crafter's high than the market had given me last year. And this one was one that made me remember why I loved to do this so much, why I love to crochet so much. Last year, when I was preparing for the market, I created some things that made me really happy to make, and I made some things that I thought would sell really well. And wouldn't you know, the things that brought me joy to make didn't sell great, and the things that I thought would sell well did. So fast forward to now, and I'm thinking about market prep and what I'd make, and I was brought right back to the same question of what would people want to buy? And nothing I thought of made me feel the way I felt when I had started making Miles' Captain America shield. Everything I thought of felt like it would be a chore to make, and it felt heavy, and that was just a really, really big red flag for me, because crochet was meant to be my hobby. It was supposed to be my escape and my place of rest, and it's not supposed to feel like a chore or something that I dread doing or something that I do because I have this really badly misplaced guilt. I don't want to fall out of love with crochet, and when I was preparing for the markets mentally and thinking about what I was going to make, I felt myself falling out of love with it. So I am taking a step back and I am reeling in my big market ambitions, and I've just decided to take my crochet hobby back and to rethink my relationship with it as a small business, even though the market last year was a success and I was so proud of myself. But the problem is, it all came from a place of feeling guilty for having a hobby. And this year I want none of that because it's not okay. So I'm just looking to get back to my why for starting crochet. I started it as a way to do something for myself, to create things that I love and that made me happy to create. And I'm just going back to that. And I have some things that I thought up that make me really excited to make. And sure, maybe if I feel like it, I'll add some things to my Etsy shop because I have loved making these things so much that now I have 1 million of them and I need to get rid of them. Or maybe I won't and I'll just make a few things and there'll be things that I never sell and something that I keep just for myself or that I give to my friends or family. Regardless, the focus for me this season isn't going to be on making money. It's going to be on not feeling guilty for taking time to create what I love just because I want to. I'm going to focus on keeping that same feeling I had when I made Miles' shield and pouring that into every project I start. And I know that not everything I make will be for everyone, but it doesn't have to be because my hobby is for me. And as long as I love it, who cares what anyone else thinks, right? That's the beauty of having a hobby. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I'll never do another mark ever again because who knows, next year I might have a much healthier relationship with my hobby and I might feel completely different. And I'm allowed to change my mind. We are allowed to change our minds. And I'm definitely not saying that you cannot make your hobby into a small business. I'm just saying that for me, right now, in this season, what I need is to simply have a hobby as a hobby without worrying about making back booth fees or worrying about making back the cost of materials or whether or not anyone wants to buy what I'm selling. I don't need that. So I'm going to give having a hobby for the sake of just having a hobby a try for a while without feeling guilty about it because that's not something I've ever done. And if you feel the same, it's okay to walk away from the business side for a bit. Maybe you need to fall in love with your hobby again like I do. Or maybe you're a badass business person who can perfectly juggle loving your hobby and the small business side of your hobby, in which case, please shoot me an email and share your advice with those of us who struggle. But regardless, hobbies are supposed to bring us joy and make us happy. And if yours isn't feeling that way anymore, it's okay to take a step back and maybe return to the business side later. Or maybe you never return to the business side if that feels right. It's whatever you want to do, whatever feels right for you. And like I said, we're all allowed to change our minds. So to wrap this up, some final thoughts and a reminder to myself and to anyone else who might need it. Rest is productive. Taking time to enjoy something for myself, taking time to enjoy something for yourself that has no other purpose beyond self-indulgence is productive and it's valuable. Our worth isn't determined by what we may or may not produce, and it's totally fine for me to crochet and for you to have your hobby just because it brings us joy, period, without any other purpose. So get out there and enjoy your hobby. Last episode, I mentioned how I love to alternate between reading a book and listening to the audiobook of that book, and I got some questions about how I do that, specifically which platforms I use. And for the most part, I do all of my reading and listening in the Libby app, but sometimes that can be a bit tricky with hold times in the Libby app. So there's definitely a bit of planning involved. If I start a series that I like, then what I immediately do is I go into the Libby app and I request a hold for every single book and every single audiobook in the series. The thing about the Libby app is that sometimes their hold times are exactly right on the money. They might say this will be available in 2 weeks and you'll get the book in 2 weeks. Other times it might say you have to wait a million years for this book and you'll get it within a week. But in the case when I do have a long wait in the Libby app and I'm ready for the next audiobook, I turn to my Spotify account. If you have a paid account with Spotify, you are able to listen to 12 hours of audiobooks a month. And they have many, many audiobooks available for free. But I say many because typically newer audiobook releases aren't available for free and you have to buy them. But if you're reading something that's been out for a while, then it's definitely worth a shot to look for it on Spotify. And of course, There are tons of other platforms that you can use to listen to audiobooks, but those are just my go-tos since you asked. So thank you so much for your questions. Okay, so last week we talked about graphic audiobooks, but for today's Just Because moment, I am so excited to chat about a new book I just discovered and have just started reading. It's called Claws and Crochet by Lauren Connolly, and it is book one of the Wolves of Pine Falls series. In very, very short summary, Claws and Crochet is a romantasy book about werewolves with a crochet meet cute, and it takes place in Colorado. I don't think there could possibly be a more perfect book for me. I literally feel like it was made for me. And what's funny is I came across it completely by accident in the Libby app. I was actually doing a search for crochet magazines. Yes, those exist. And yes, the Libby app has them. When I came across this book title among the crochet magazines, which was so weird. But anyway, I immediately put it on hold because obviously I had to, and it just became available. So I've just started to read it and I'm already loving it. But then I had a thought. What if we started a Just Because Diaries book club where each month I will pick a book for us to read, either something I find or something listener recommended by you, and we read it over the course of the month. And then along the way, you can write in with any questions or thoughts, and then at the end of the month, we'll talk about it. Yeah? I mean, I'm kind of excited about it. I've always wanted to be part of a book club, so I thought, why not do it? And why not start with Claws and Crochet as our inaugural book club pick? And don't worry, you don't need to know anything about crochet to enjoy the book. If you love romantasy and or werewolves, or I don't know, maybe you were Team Jacob in the Twilight days, then it's definitely worth a read. Plus, reading is always just so much more fun when you have someone to chat about the book with. So definitely send me your thoughts and opinions, and I will share them in a future episode. I'll leave the book info in the show notes, so head there after the episode for more info. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Just Because Diaries. I would love to hear from you about your hobby turned small business experience, your thoughts about the Just Because Diaries book club, or a Just Because moment that made you happy or proud or challenged you. Please feel free to shoot me an email anytime at thejustbecausediaries@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you, and you may just be mentioned in a future episode. Also, give me a follow on Instagram at thejustbecausediaries. And finally, it would mean the world to me if you could please take a few seconds to rate and review my podcast by hitting that 5-star button and leaving me a little love note in the review section. And please feel free to share this episode with a friend you think might enjoy being part of this budding community. Thanks so much again for listening. I appreciate you being here. Have a wonderful, fun, and safe Halloween, however you are celebrating. And I'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Bye for now.